What is up, ladies, gentlemen, fellow boys out there? Welcome to my episode 7 of season 4, which is, crazy to say, actually, the penultimate episode recap, review, and breakdown. And I really do mean that. When I was watching this episode, I was like, oh yeah, we've literally only got one episode left of The Boys season 4, and it's like, really? It feels like there's more that maybe needs to happen this season, but I guess, a lot of it's going to happen next episode. So we're obviously going to go through the events of today's episode, the biggest things that happen. We're going to get into some theories, I guess maybe some low-key predictions and speculations about what could be happening in that finale. And I very much so do encourage you guys to get involved down in the comments below. How do you think this is going to catapult us into the final season to get us that scorched earth duel between Butcher and Homelander? And do you have any predictions like, is A-Train gonna die? Maybe. Could there be somebody else? What else is gonna happen? But go ahead, like this video if you do go on to enjoy it, of course. Would really appreciate that support on the boys content, and of course subscribe for more videos just like this. So right away, we have a bit of a Vought Christmas special with Ryan. You got the A-Train puppet there. They're singing this song about, like, Antifa and just telling on your parents. And, a lot of the boys' surface level commentary there. And Ryan doesn't really feel comfortable with what's going on. And obviously, this has been something that's brewing all season long with his character arc. It's like, okay, well, screw you, Butcher, after what happened last season. But okay, now I'm with my dad. But even as a kid, I can see exactly who my dad is. And so Ryan's series of events, I guess you could say, this season seem to be really culminating to the point of where he's like, I don't know if I could be doing this anymore. And he seems to be leaning over to Butcher's side right before the finale. But you know what? I know they're painting it to be going one direction, and that's upsetting Homelander, especially with how upset he's getting towards the very end. But I don't trust the boys. Like, anything could happen. Anything could happen, so I'm just going to keep my mind open. But then again, to chuck a little bit of speculation in here already, if he does really go away from Homelander, this may yet be another thing to shed his humanity and tip him over the scale. I mean, already we've seen that happen after the Red Room. Now he's tearing people in two. The only thing that he's got left really is Ryan, and that may be exactly what they're aiming for here. And so the overall plot this episode, mainly for the boys, was really instigated from when we had A-Train spying on Sage, because she was essentially enlisting a soup shapeshifter assassin, I guess you could say, to take out the president, right? Because that's all a part of Sage's big brain plan to take out Robert Singer and then, slowly usher in the new era of soup domination that Victoria Neuman's going to be complicit in, even though, as we find out this episode when Hughie goes to visit her, that she wasn't aware that Tech Knight's prisons were going to be used as camps. So, by the way, just to kind of interject here, I think that maybe he did get through to her just a little bit, and I think that if I was going to chuck in a theory here, Neuman may surprise us next episode, because she is kind of bad, but she's not as diabolical, as Billy would say, as Homelander. But on the other side of this plot, obviously we have the soup virus that we first learned about from Gen V, and we know what Butcher's been up to this whole time, and he decided to come clean to the boys about it, much to Joe Kessler's absolute detest. So we had Butcher tell everyone what he did with Samir, how he chopped off his leg, but he also mentions how, obviously, the thing about the soup virus is that it's kind of going to cause a soup genocide. So to prevent that from happening, they decide to combine Samir's ability to make this virus to not cause a genocide with the help of Frenchie. As I've said in the past 2 reviews, it just felt way too obvious of a thing to happen. Obviously Frenchie wasn't going to leave the show before the end of season 5. He's already confessed to the murders, so it's not like he would get out legally. So it felt obvious that they would have to pull him out against his will through connections such as what Billy has with Grace Mallory. So yeah, I just felt like it was coming a million miles away. But what I was happy about with this is that obviously it readdressed the situation going on with Kimiko not being too happy with Frenchie. We got a bit more into their personal storyline in this episode with, as I've said before, clearly their stories parallel each other with the torturing aspects of their past, things they're really not happy about. We learned why Kimiko can't really speak because she had to kill other people from a child, other girls, without even making a sound. Not so much as a sound, and by the time she was allowed to speak again, she couldn't. Like, she just literally psychologically was unable to. So they're honestly both in the same position of, like, how do we, like, even begin to forgive ourselves, let alone move on? But at least they have each other to help figure that out. Now, on the Homelander side of things this episode, well, obviously he found out last episode from Firecracker that there's a few things that he was left out the loop of. So he finds out that there was bugs at Tech Knight's Manor, so he's really annoyed that William Butcher must know all of their plans, so he impulsively just wants to kill Butcher and take all the boys out. But Sage comes into the meeting a little bit late, which she was like, oh, this seems off. Firecracker's here before me. The meeting was moved up. But she advises Homelander to obviously not go after the boys because, you know, they're not going to exactly leak the information that they know about Homelander's plan because they want to get to Neuman first. She's saying the operation is still kind of under control, yet obviously there is now a distrust between Homelander and Sage, and I guess Firecracker is just there trying to suck up to Homelander, be a bit relevant, just being like, I'm offended how you're talking to this great man here. I'm wondering if she's going to be a bit of collateral next episode as well. Like, is she really going to go into season 5? Maybe, but like, you know what? I could just imagine that Homelander would just laser her out of annoyance. But then again, he would lose his, milking situation that is happening. So maybe you might want to keep her around for that. Or there could be, obviously, a showdown between her and Starlight again. Now, for MM's story this episode, as we know, he's been a bit more of a slow cooker this season with his own personal arc. But it's still been that continuation of his anxiety, his stress, the panic attack he had. And obviously, he wants to get his family out of town. And it turns out that they want him to leave with them, to the point of where Monique even was kissing MM. So it's like he's finally getting to a place of where he can be back with his family as an actual family unit. But the thing is, he's conflicted this episode. Like, obviously, we have that part where he wants to hand over leadership of the boys to Butcher because, you know, he had that panic attack, passed out during the mission. He feels like he's not cut out to be the boss, but Butcher is. And with the offer from Monique, it's kind of like, well, maybe I should just get out of here. But as A-Train goes over to him a bit later, noticing that he wasn't on the mission that the other boys went out on. Do you really think the world is gonna, like, you're gonna be safe in Belize and that Homelander's plan isn't gonna, like, get global? MM is kind of realizing that I can't quit this fight, knowing that it's only a matter of time and inevitability that my family will be cooked if I don't try and help out the boys with stopping Homelander and this plan with Neuman and, you know, this soup domination for once and for all. So I have criticized MM's storyline this season only from like a situation of wanting to see more. But these moments really do hit because it's really sincere. It's really sentimental. The guy is like, as stressful as he is, he's like the most chill, or tries to keep the boys the most chill. And you just want nothing for the best for him. He just wants to get out, and he still can't quite have that. And this is giving me vibes of like, I swear to God, I don't want him to die. Like, I know it's such an easy thing to say in the penultimate episode for theories. In the next episode, like, is MM gonna die? Is A-Train gonna die? Some feel more obvious than others, but that would be really painful if MM died trying to, you know, just do something that would help enable him to get back to his family on a permanent basis. Is that a bit too predictable, or do you expect one of the characters in The Boys to die as well? Not just someone like Firecracker or A-Train or Ashley. I feel like when you're getting this close to the end, not that it needs to be Game of Thrones level where main characters die left, right, and center, but I think some oomphs will come out the bag, so to speak. And so this is where they go to the shooter's location, thanks to A-Train's intel, and they go in this assassin, this soup's apartment, this soup shapeshifter's apartment, and they find some Secret Service files on these detail assignments on Robert Singer, right? So this is where they find a woman in the closet who eventually turns out to be the shapeshifter assassin. And the way they do this, it reminded me of Supernatural, which maybe was deliberately done because you had to kind of peel the skin off. So as soon as the shapeshifter soup could touch another person, they can actually become them underneath their skin. But the way it happens is so the boys that I did think it was a really gruesomely cool way to do it. Now, speaking of gruesomely cool, I don't know if I would say the cool part of it, but this is where we have Firecracker take Homelander to see who the leak could be, right? And technically, Webweaver was a leak, and he was leaking a lot of web in this moment. But yes, he was a leak in terms of how he admitted that Butcher would come to him, give him drugs and money and stuff for him to be told what he wants to know. But he wasn't the leak that Homelander was looking for. But that didn't stop Homelander from tearing him in two, like literally separating from the shoulder. As I'm touching my shoulder now, it's like tingling, imagining it, and to the point of where you can see the heart beating. I probably obviously can't show that on screen, but man, that what is seen. Other little things in the episode, I don't know if you call this little, but we have the Deep being confronted by Ambrosius, or is it Ambrosius, for ditching her for Sage. This gets to the point of where they get into an argument, and, you know, I guess speaking of shedding humanity, that is really happening with the Deep. And the thing is, Ambrosius was actually right. We did have Sage completely using the Deep, but he's so thick like a wooden plank that he feels like that's not the case, and he's the perfect example of manipulation working. And he smashes the tank, and she can't breathe. I was still thinking, like, they were talking outside the tank earlier on in the episode for a bit longer than the tank smashing here, and she started dying quite quickly, but that's just a little nitpick. But I imagine voice acting that part with the fading breath at the end for Ambrosia or Ambrosius was probably, even though it's meant to be a bit of a serious moment, I can't imagine that little wavering breath that just kept going on, and then it went back to Kevin, and then you know, I can't imagine that didn't take like 20 takes to do. And then next up, speaking of the Deep, well, Homelander, since he's kind of like, screw you, Sage now, he actually decides to pursue what he wanted to do, and that is send the Deep and Black Noir to take out Billy and the boys. Now, you could argue, wouldn't, you know, Homelander do that himself, but I think he still low-key likes the idea of this scorched earth thing that they've been teasing between each other. So I think it's more of a situation where this is Homelander after all. I don't think he cares too much, but he's going to give Billy a chance to be like, look, you know, I'm just going to send my goons after you, and if you survive, we'll keep this dance going. But if not, then, you know, I'm Homelander. I don't really care either way. So this is when we have Annie and Butcher versus Black Noir 2 and the Deep, and it felt good seeing Annie get her own back against the Deep. I mean, my God, that moment where she just picks him up by his gills, like, that's the, you know, there's many things, like practically 9 out of 10 things that don't make me go iffy with seeing gory things. Like, practically nothing on the boys ever shakes me, whether it's the lobotomy thing or whatever. It doesn't make me cringe physically at all. Same with horror stuff. I don't really get like that, but there's something about the Deep skills that it always makes me feel so skin crawly. That's like my one weakness. We did see Butcher seeing Annie about to get squashed by the Deep, and he asked Kessler to do whatever he did to Ezekiel, which again is making me wonder, like, are we going to see that again? Maybe if we have a confrontation between Butcher and Homelander, or another situation in where the Kessler part of the brain will still do that again in the finale, most likely. But this is where we have A-Train arrive to save the day, and, you know, he's definitely changed for the most part. The fact that he's now he has exposed himself. The Deep now knows, obviously Black Noir knows, and it gets back to Homelander to the point of where Homelander actually took that person. I'm surprised almost, but it's probably more his ego was hurt, right? I am thinking, like, how's he gonna die, though, in that prediction that I kind of have? Because he's taken the tracker out, right? His family are gone. So he could be off in the wind, but I'm guessing that the new appeal of being a hero and the way he saw himself inspire that kid, and how he said to MM earlier, that's greater than anything he's ever felt compared to his time with Vought. Is he going to risk helping out again? And that's where he's going to get almost grabbed by the throat by Homelander and then crunch. This is where we have Sage arrive to Homelander, and she reveals that she knew about the leak. Now, she tries to put it off, as I think she is saving face a little bit here through saying that he only leaked what she wanted Butcher and their team to know, and that was the perfect misinformation delivery system. And I have to say, like, Homelander was being pretty generous here, because he was like, just go back to Detroit. Like, he's saying that he could kill her, but he's not going to, which, again, is remarkable restraint for him. I'm very surprised. But this is where she says something, and I don't know if I'm, like, reading into it so much that I'm just seeing past the obviousness, or just not looking into it enough that I can't even see it. But when she says that, okay, you know, you can systematically eliminate anyone who gets in your way, but there's one person you will never defeat. Good luck without me. And I was just like, who? Now, she drops a notebook on the table there with Queen Maeve on the front. And I thought, well, she's off in the wind. I don't think she's coming back. And I'm pretty sure Homelander could defeat her if he wanted to. Like, if he really wanted to, right? The only other person that he couldn't defeat, technically, in a roundabout way of speaking, through maybe what Sage means here, is his son, Ryan. He wouldn't be able to bring himself to do that. And it turns out that Sage had a thing with Black Noir too as well. But she didn't need to lobotomize herself to be with him like she did with the Deep. So that is something that I actually didn't see coming. We also got that moment with Samir at the end where, and I thought this was going to go a lot further than what it did, but he injects Kimiko with the virus. And I thought that was it. Like, I really, really did. Because I thought, you know, the virus, if it's in your blood, it will pump around your body. But then again, I'm not a medical expert, so maybe it does need to set in that certain limb of the body and then spread. It doesn't necessarily mean it will spread through your bloodstream into a different limb. It's just localized. So what ended up happening, obviously, is we had Frenchie cut off her leg. And I'm laughing because we had a little baby Kimiko leg, as you're probably seeing on screen right now, after that. But yeah, like, since Frenchie knows his stuff, he can still extract the virus from Kimiko's severed leg. One thing I am getting a bit frustrated about that they're not explaining here is that, as they're saying when they're gathered around together, like, you know, French could get out the foot, the virus works, is it strong enough to kill Homelander? No. Neuman, a possibility. How do you know? I want to know how you know this. Why isn't the virus strong enough to kill Homelander? Like, why? How do you know that? Like, if he was injected with that, how would he survive that? Like, I guess the argument is that if he's souped up and the most powerful soup, that his blood cells or whatever would fight the infection are, like, souped up as well, and the infection wouldn't stand a chance against how souped up he is. I don't know. I don't really get how it works, and there's not really we're just meant to believe it, right? Like, somebody's going to get this virus next episode, and, you know, I do feel like it's a bit too predictable if it's Victoria Neuman as well, but I can almost see this almost sad death in where she helps out but gets stuck with the virus anyway, does something good, and it's a bit of a horrific death, and I don't know, maybe one of the boys helps end it quickly for her. This is where we have Billy watching Ryan on the TV with the live Christmas special, and this is kind of more about what I said earlier. He's definitely more his mother's son than his father's son, and this is why we have Billy saying to Kessler, this is why I have faith in the kid. But I know this is so bold of me to say, but since Ryan isn't really so much of a thing in the boys' comics, dare I say it, do you guys think that, despite what Sage said, like, there's, you know, one person who you won't be able to defeat or whatever, do you think with the whole thing this season with Homelander being shedding his humanity, that since we're getting into Scorched Earth territory in the boys season 5, think about it, if Butcher's got a kamikaze to the point, what's one thing that would make him do that more than anything? What if Homelander really does, now that Ryan, let's just say, goes even further next episode to be like, screw you, Dad, I'm just not doing this whole thing anymore. Like, we've already seen that this episode with the Vought thing, but let's just say he gets pissed off even more next episode in the finale, and Homelander kills Ryan. Like, and not in like a brutal way, maybe he just holds his hand over his face, and I don't know, but I'm just saying that would be the last little tether of humanity that Homelander needs to shed, and that would drive Butch around the bend, and it would be all-out war for like an absolute apocalyptic final season. It's such a hard thing to speculate about because, you know, Becca's such a big thing for Billy, and, you know, what would Billy be without the last tether he has to Becca? But maybe that's the whole point, right? You know, they're both going to probably die fighting each other in the finale of season 5. So I'd love to know your thoughts on that. But to be fair, that if Ryan does die by Homelander's hand, it might not happen in the finale next week. It might happen in season 5. And then, guys, to end off the episode, god damn, can they give Hughie a break? So, like, you know, I know a lot of people were kind of actually saying by the end of it, in retrospect, last week's episode was kind of messed up because not only has Hughie's dad died, then he gets taken into Tech Knight's freaking tech dungeon or whatever it was called, and then assaulted by Ashley and him. And now he basically, you know, we think this is Annie, and I completely fell for this, by the way. Let me know if you actually saw through it, but let me know if you also didn't see it, like I didn't. And it's revealed that after they used the Starlight suit for other purposes, she goes to the safe while Hughie is completely knocked out. And there's the laptop, which I assume has the security detail for the president information on it. But either way, it's revealed that it's the shapeshifter. So Hughie once again, this is even worse than the assault he got last episode. Like, the dude can't catch a break. Oh man. And then we see Starlight wake up in this other place, and you know, she's not really too powerful because there's not really any light surrounding the area. So very intrigued to see how she's going to get out of that situation. Maybe she would regain a little bit of her strength. But one thing I will say is, as much as I've enjoyed this episode, and you know, just to kind of close it up in a bow here for the review, and I've enjoyed other episodes of this season of The Boys, this season does feel like it feels like more of a bridge season. And what I mean by that is, in like the overarching story of all seasons of The Boys, and now it's going to close next year, you would look at some seasons as like season 1, right? The jumping off point, a lot happens. And then some other seasons, a lot happens as well. But then, you know, by the end, a lot would happen in that final season. But sometimes you get seasons in where it doesn't really push things along a bunch. It's kind of like a bridge season. It kind of bridges the gap between the last big things to happen. Then you have like a little bit of an interlude. And this isn't me, by all means, saying that season 4 is filler. Not at all. Because it does still move things along. Like, I'm not trying to discredit it in that way. But I'm just saying, like, it's more of a bridge. In the same way, I guess you could say, like, you've got the Batman one, like, as we cover a lot on this channel, and then you've got the Penguin series, which has 8 episodes in it, to bridge the gap between the Batman Part 1 and Part 2. The Boys Season 4 feels like a bridge between Season 3 and Season 5. And that's why, even though I'm a big fan of this show, I'm very grateful that they're deciding to end it on Season 5, because a lot of shows do not have that self-awareness, because if they went on to Season 6, I guarantee you, Season 5 would have felt like another Season 4 bridge. Sure, you know, crazy boys, twisted stuff would have happened, but ultimately it would have just been like, oh, now they're going to try and do another thing to Homelander, which is half-cocked and doesn't really work out. There's a new character introduced, and it's like, oh, more crazy, gory stuff happens, but like, you know, there's not a whole bunch more to be done, and I feel like that's what they've been struggling with a little bit this season, as entertaining as it has been. And ultimately, since it is ending next season, they have had quite a bit to play with, but just, you know what I'm trying to say, not like leaps and bounds worth of crazy development. More like simmering away this whole season until, I think, the finale, where I would say the biggest developments will happen in next week's episode to launch us into the plot, the main plot of the 5th and final season. So, with that being said, guys, let me know what you thought of this episode. Let me know any thoughts and predictions on the finale and what you think could happen. Expand on what I said. Let me know if you agree or disagree, or if you're like, hey, Boba, I heard you say that, but did you not think of this? If you got this far in the video, I'd really, really appreciate a like. Do consider subscribing to the channel if you're enjoying the content here. But until next time, just thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you fellow boys in the next video. Goodbye.